Tehran is burning, Tel Aviv is shaking, and the world is watching Israel has bombarded Iran's nuclear site. Iran has fired back with over 200 missiles, top journals and nuclear scientists are dead. Has world war begin in the Middle East? This is not just another strike. This is a calculated military campaign, historic retaliation, and dangerous test of nuclear deterrence in this 21st century. Welcome to the Unfiltered Talk with Rishika. Today we break down Israel's Operation Rising Lion, Iran's massive retaliation, critical damage to Iran's nuclear ambitions, and the dark history of sabotage, assassinations, and back-channel warfare that lead to this every moment. On June 13, 2025, Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu announced Operation Rising Lion, targeting Israel's nuclear and ballistic missiles infrastructure. Israel claimed it was primitive strikes to destroy what Netanyahu called external threat. Their air force struck Natanz, Isfahan, and Tehran. Among killed were Hosseini Salami, chief of the Revolutionary Guard, at least 9 nuclear scientists, several high ranking military officials. Here's the names. Eyewitnesses reported massive explosion in Tehran and black smoke from Isfahan, home to Iran's only uranium conversion facility. According to International Atomic Energy, critical damage has been done to Iran's uranium conversion sites in Isfahan. This chokes Iran's fuel cycle, halting its ability to make enriched uranium. Without the feedstock, Iran cannot move forward with the weapons grade material. US nuclear engineer Robert said, if you interrupt the piece of flow, the sheet, the fuel cycle doesn't work anymore. This sets back Iran's nuclear ambitions by months or even years. Iran retaliates swiftly. Over 200 ballistic missiles were fired towards Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Ratam Gan. 4 civilians dead, 200 plus injured, including 7 Israeli soldiers. Missiles breached the Iron Dome, striking high-rise buildings. Air raid sirens screamed through the nights. Entire city went into bunkers. Mehrabad Airport also hit. Tehran's Mehrabad Airport, which also houses a Air Force base, was struck by 2 projectiles. Explosions were reported, but according to Iran, there was no damage to the runways or airport facilities. Fordo enrichment site targeted. Israel also targeted Iran's Fordo nuclear enrichment facility. However, Iranian authority claimed that much of the sensitive equipment had already been moved and there is no radiation threat. Now we'll talk about Iron Dome breach. This time Israel missile defense system, the Iron Dome, failed to intercept all some of incoming missiles. Iranian projectiles reached deep into Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan, and other places. The high-rise building in center Tel Aviv suffered a direct hit, and 9 buildings were destroyed in Ramat Gan. 7 Israeli soldiers were also injured, making the first confirmed military casualty of the escalation. US Ambassador to Israel, Mike, said he had to rush to the shelters 5 times overnight. Should be quiet. Probably won't be, he wrote on X, formerly Twitter. West Bank also rocked by blast. In the occupied West Bank, small explosions were occurred due to rockets shrapnel, injuring 5 Palestinians, were including 3 children. In response, Israel has imposed strict closure in the West Bank. Checkpoints, roadblocks, and the movement restrictions are now fully uh, enforced. Iran issued broad warning. Iran directly threatened Israel's Western alliance. Any country that comes to Israel's defense, whether in the Persian Gulf or the Red Sea, will have its military bases targeted by Iranian forces. Iran also blamed the United States for being in the attacks and said the US will be fully responsible for these consequences. Israel declared a national emergency while Defense Minister of Israel warned if Khamenei continues to fire missiles toward the Israel's home front, Tehran will burn. But isn't the first time Israel has gone far Iran's nuclear program. Look at the timelines. of the secret strikes, sabotage, and shadow assassinations. In 2007, scientist Adrashri Hosseinipour dies under suspicious circumstances. 2010, the virus allegedly made by Iran and US cripples Iran's centrifuges. In 2020, Mohsen Fakir Zad, Iran's top nuclear scientist, assassinated near Tehran. Iran blames Israel. In April 2021, attack at Natanz nuclear site destroyed parts of its underground enrichment centers. June 2022, Iran accused Israel of poisoning two nuclear scientists. In April 2024, Israel bombs Iran's consulate in Syria. Iran responded with 300 drones and missiles. October 2024, Israel conducts first open military strikes on Iranian defense system. And now the June 2025, the third day of June 2025 of open warfare and most devastating Israel strike yet. Now let's talk about Iran's proxy power. Who stands with Iran? While Israel has alliance like the US, France, and quite supporters like India, Iran too is backed by a powerful through decentralized network. This often referred as the axis of resistance, a term uh, Iran proudly uses. It includes militarized terror groups, sympathetic regime that span across the Middle East. Core member of Iran's axis, uh, Hezbollah, in Lebanon, Iran's most powerful proxy, heavily armed with missiles, drones, trained by Iran's IRGC, already launched attacks on northern Israel in retaliation. Houthis in Yemen, Iran backed rebel group that has targeted ships in the Red Sea. Recently claimed responsibility for missiles fired towards Israel. Harsh al Sabi, PMF Iraq, a powerful Shia military umbrella in Iraq, trained and funded by Iran, has launched rockets at US bases and Israel interested in Iraq and Syria. Syria regime. Bashar al Assad's government gave Iran's territorial access for weapon movement. Iranian bases in Syria have been hit multiple times by Israel airstrikes. Hamas and Palestine Jihad. Gaza, financially and military backed by Iran. October 7, 2023, Hamas surprise attack on Israel killed 1,200 people. That target triggered the Israel-Gaza war, which is Iran openly supported. Ideological support, promoting anti-Israel, anti-US sentiment to recruit fighters. Iran's vision is to encircle Israel using these proxies so that any Israeli or Western attack gets regional response. But here's the catch, the resistance is weakening. Hezbollah is overstretched under economic pressure, has lost high ranking commanders to Israeli strike. Syrian bases are under constant Israeli bombardment. Israel's supply lines are getting exposed. Houthis' attack on commercial ships have drawn Western retaliation, including from the Indian Navy. Iraq's government is increasingly under pressure of the distance itself from the Tehran shadow networks. Even among the Iranian public, there was growing anger over the why Iran spent billions on foreign militaries while its own economy suffers under sanctions. Tension between Iran and Israel have been steady rising, especially since October 2023 following the Hamas-led terror attack on Israel. Israel has continuously blamed Iran for arming and financing proxy groups like Hamas in Gaza, as I said before, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Houthis in Yemen. But for the first time in decades, the conflict has crossed into direct military confrontation on the massive scale, with the strikes, ballistic missiles, drone attack exchanged between the two regional powers. These strikes comes at the critical time, just as U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiation, which has resumed in April, now appeared to be on the verge of collapse. The next round of the talk was scheduled for Sunday, but after the recent escalation, their future looks uncertain. In sharp warning, US President Donald Trump urged Iran, make a deal before there is nothing left. Now let's talk about Iran fails to fully destroy Iran's nukes? Question mark. If if even a part of Iran's 60% enrichment uranium survive, which experts say is enough up to 10 bombs, then Tehran could accelerate its nuclear program even faster. Some analysts believe Iran has already hidden uranium stocks in secret underground facilities that has no easy accessible. Israel might target scientists, but you cannot bomb knowledge. If Iran's next leadership is even more hardline, this war could spiral into an endless a loop of strike and counterstrike. Israel has term up for it, mowing the grass, attacking repeatedly to keep the threat under control, but never fully eliminating it. Now let's talk about global economic shocks and oil crisis. Markets are already reacting sharply. Oil prices have urged due to warfare. Global gold has touched a 2-month high. US Treasury bonds are seeing higher demand. The Dow futures plugged over 580 points. Now they imagine this. If Iran blocks the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point of 20% of the world's oil, or if Houthis disrupt the Red Sea shipping, it could trigger a global energy crisis. Inflation would rise, fuel prices would skyrocket, supply chain would choke. Now let's talk about Iranian regime collapse and chaos in what if Israel's endgame works and the Iranian regime fail? Netanyahu has openly said that this war aims to clear the path to freedom for the Iranian people. But if Iran's central leadership collapses, it would create a power vacuum, like we saw in Iraq and Libya. Remember what happened there: no strong leadership, rise of terror groups, long-term civil wars, complete regional instability. The few days are critical. Will Iran go for the measure retaliation, or will it risk all out war? Will the US pressure Israel to hold back or silently allow it to escalate? International Atomic Energy Agency on June 12, 2025 took a historic step for the first time since 2006. Its broad of governance vote to formally declared that Iran has violated its obligations under the 1974 Safeguards Agreement. This vote wasn't symbolic, it was a clear international rebuke. It confirmed that many intelligence sources had suspected Iran has failed to provide transparent answer about its undeclared nuclear material and convert activities. Earlier this year, Israel had made its position crystal clear: if Iran escalates its nuclear program towards weapon capability, Israel would respond militarily. This wasn't just diplomatic posturing, it was a public red line. Even the United States, which had initially pushed for diplomacy, showed sign of shifting. President Donald Trump had remarked, if it's require military, we are going to have a military, Israel will lead it. Now let's talk about what is uranium. Uranium is a natural occurring metal found in earth, but its raw form it's not usable in nuclear bombs or nuclear power plants. It must go through a multiple step process before it becomes dangerous or useful. Uranium conversions to feedstock. First, raw uranium is refined into a powder yellow called yellow cake. Then it goes to a conversions facilities like the one in Isfahan in Iran, where it's turned into a gas called uranium hexafluoride UF6. This gas is called feedstock because it's what feeds the next step, enrichment. Once uranium is in gas form, it's feed into centrifuges. These machines spin super fast to separate uranium atoms. The goal: increase the percentage of the uranium to 35. 3 to 5% of uh, 235 used to nuclear power. 90% of uranium 235 used for a nuclear bomb. This is called weapons grade uranium. To produce just 1 kilogram of weapons grade uranium from natural uranium, about 250 SW, SWU is needed. Iran was thousands of centrifuges, and that gives it technical capacity to produce bomb grade material if it is chooses. Third, process between 2006 to 12 by Iran had already enriched by 2006. Iran had already enriched uranium up to 3.5%. Between 2010 to 12, International Atomic Energy Agency reported confirmed that Iran had successfully enriched uranium up to 19.37% at its Natanz and Fordo faculties. The alarmed international community. In 2015 nuclear deal. In 2015, Iran signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with the six world powers: US, UK, France, China, Russia, and the EU. Under the deal, Iran agreed to reduce its number of centrifuges, limited enrichment up to 3.67%, cap its stock to 300 kg. In return, international sanctions were lifted. Post 2018 escalation. In 2018, the US, under then President Donald Trump, withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Iran responded with scaling up to its enrichment program. By 2024 to 2025, Iran had enriched uranium up to 60%, dangerously close to weapons grade. This was a critical red line. The jump from 60 to 90% is a small but deadly. Experts says going from 0.7% to 60 takes the most time and effort, but going from 60 to 90% is relatively easy and very quick. With the Iran's current infrastructures and SWU capacity, analysts believe Iran could produce enough 90% enrichment uranium for a nuclear weapon in a matter of weeks, if not days. Less than 3 weeks to a bomb. According to Hui Zhang, a nuclear expert at Harvard University, if Iran decides it could convert its 90% uranium into a nuclear bomb is less than 3 weeks. This what makes Israel's recent airstrike even more critical. It was a race against time. Now let's talk about a missiles fly over West Asia. India stay firm but alone. Why did New Delhi refuse to sign a joint statement against Israel? And what about the Indian student trapped in Iran's war zone? India has officially distanced itself from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization statement condemning Israel airstrike on Iran, while SCO members like Russia, China, Iran, and Pakistan called it a violation of the international law. India's opt out. India said it wasn't part of the discussion that led to the SEO statement. It's reiterate or call for restraint, diplomacy, and de-escalation. This comes day after the India abstains from the UN vote demanding a Gaza ceasefire and again signaling its quite shift closer to Israel. India-Israel defense ties are now stronger than ever. Things drones, radar system, Bark 8 missiles, defense, but also managing old ties with Iran. Thanks to the Chabar port and energy deals. Meanwhile, hundreds of the Indian students, especially from Jammu and Kashmir, are trapped in Iran with the missiles exploding near hostels and classes suspended. Panic is spreading. Students reported sleepless nights, slow internet, and unclear evacuation plans. India is walking a tightrope between war and diplomacy, caught between Israel's friendship and Iran's history. New Delhi's foreign policy is now defined by strategic autonomy, but what about human cost? This is Rashika, and this was your unfiltered talk. Like and share and comment your views on this diplomatic balance. History repeats itself, but this time the stakes are nuclear. This war isn't just about uranium, this is about survival, legacy, and power. Because narrative needs a spin. Thanks for watching.